Well, we are still on. I guess this would be part two of the turntable project. We have to have this 65-foot turntable on our own railroad.
Oh, dare I say revolutionary. Oh.
Yeah, or in my case, a revolving line of credit.
Yes, no kidding.
Anyway, we have to be able to turn around even our big K36. This is a K36, and you'll notice it just barely fits on a 65-foot turntable. And that's why we're building a 65-foot turntable on our own railroad.
Right.
But what an impressive thing, what a difficult thing.
Yes.
It's turning out to be quite the massive project. Anyway, this week we're still working on the turntable pit.
Oh.
And that's being constructed out of multiple layers of plywood, 3/4-inch plywood, furniture grade plywood.
Well, it's got to be nice.
Yeah, and gee, some of the plywood anymore is pretty gnarly, and this has to be strong because it has to support its own weight, but it also has to support a 40-pound locomotive.
And look good at the same time.
Absolutely. So here is the turntable. This is what we're recreating, the full-size 65-foot turntable. And here's an available kit for that, a resin cast kit. And what I want to build is going to be kind of this same thing. So I'm using this for a lot of inspiration and taking ideas from it. Of course, the heart of the system here is the bridge itself. And mine is going to be constructed out of 2 layers of furniture grade 3/4-inch plywood, and that will be wrapped in sheet plastic. At the very center, it will be 3 layers of plywood where the hole goes through for the support system. The support itself is this brass tube. Mine will be 16 millimeters in diameter. There are then these brass bushings that rod goes through, therefore mine will have an inside diameter of 16 millimeters and outside diameter of 18 millimeters. And that support runs through the bottom of the turntable pit. There's also a bottom bearing that actually carries the weight of the entire assembly and keeps the whole thing being pushed down through the turntable pit. I'm going to be using a ball bearing for this, as there's a lot of weight on this with a heavy locomotive. So the first step is going to be to cut out the turntable pit itself. This will consist of 4 different layers of 3/4-inch furniture grade plywood. So the first layer will be the bottom of the pit. The next layer will be halfway up the dished part of the pit. The next layer will be the footings for the railroad ties and ring rail, and then finally the upper edge of the turntable pit. So the 4 layers are starting off as 4 by 4 foot pieces of furniture grade plywood. This will be the bottom of the pit and the main support structure, and it fits tightly up into the framework that I built years ago to hold this entire turntable. It has to support the weight of the turntable as well as whatever locomotive is on the turntable. So there's a fair bit of support structure here. I'm just sort of guesstimating that between the 4 cutout pieces of plywood, the turntable bridge, and then a 40-pound locomotive sitting on the turntable bridge, there may be well over 80 pounds here. So I have to have really good support around the edges here. So there's a vertical 1x4, and then attached to the bottom of that is another 1x4 to support the bottom of the turntable pit. The joint right here overlaps the other way. The horizontal piece overlaps the vertical, not the other way around. And then this is glued and screwed and is very strong, but on thinking about it, I have decided to add 6 steel gussets to this structure just to make darn sure that it can support the weight. And then the base of the turntable here will be screwed to the support structure both horizontally and vertically, but not glued in place because I want to be able to remove it should I need to. The outermost edge of the turntable is curved and will have a fascia board on it. So all 4 layers have this particular curve cut into them. Now the bottommost layer will only have that curve cut into it. The only other thing needing to happen is to drill through the very center at 18 millimeters to hold this support column. I've constructed a compass system, radius arms made out of foam core that screw to this base at that very center position, and then I can mark out the concentric rings that need to be cut out with a saber saw. The curved outer edge of the turntable is at 24 3/4 inches, and again this cut needs to be made into all 4 layers, as this is the outside edge of the entire layout. So I'm going to start by marking off this particular arc in all 4 pieces of plywood and then cutting that out so that they all line up and match and a fascia board can be mounted across this curvature. The next cut is absolutely the most critical, and that is the edge of the turntable pit, the outside edge of the pit. And the radius here is 19.5 inches because the turntable itself is 39 inches across. If there's any deviation in this circle, either the turntable bridge will run into the edge of the pit or the turntable bridge will pull away from the edge of the turntable pit. So it's very critical that this be correct. So the center point that I've marked here has to be exactly the same between the bottom of the turntable, this piece here, and the top of the turntable pit itself. If I happen to screw this up, which I'm not planning on doing, it will mean going back to Home Depot and purchasing another $85 sheet of furniture grade plywood. So I don't want to do that. The stereo also happens to live under the turntable here, so I've had to dismantle all of the stereo wiring and pull those components out so that I can get to the bottom side of the turntable pit. Here you can see how the L-girder structure supports the turntable. And again, this joint is glued and screwed and now also has 6 steel gussets holding it together because there's going to be a lot of weight at this joint. Here we can see a cross section of the turntable pit. Here is the edge of the turntable pit, and you can see how critical it is that that aligned perfectly with the turntable bridge. The surround around the turntable pit is supported in 2 locations, one from the edge of the L-girder and then again from the stacked layers inside the turntable pit. The circles cut in the other 2 layers are not at all critical. The uppermost one is the footing that supports the ties that support the ring rail, and the other one is here just as a spacer and to help create the dish in the bottom of the turntable pit. The footing here for the ties that support the ring rail, again, not critical at all in its dimensions. It just has to be wide enough that ties can be set on top of it and then the ring rail attached to the ties. I'm hoping that my ties go on here a little bit straighter than the ones here at Durango. This will make the depth of my turntable pit to the footing for the ties 2.5 inches, or in other words, scale 50.5 inches or 4.2 feet. A little tiny bit tall compared to prototype, but pretty darn close. And then the spacer section here, again, just helps create a dish in the turntable pit. And then I have to figure out some way to blend between the footing and the center of the turntable pit so that it's a nice uniform dish shape. I have a couple of ideas on how I'm going to go about that. I'm going to do a little testing and a little screwing around with that, but I'm planning to jump off that bridge when I get to it. At any rate, first up, cut out the 4 sections that make up the turntable pit. So let's get on with that. So this is the actual base of the turntable, and the only cut to this piece is the front edge, the curvature here along the front edge. And that front edge curvature has to be the same on every single layer. The center point is found by very carefully measuring from the sides, front, and back, marking that point, and then establishing an indentation with a center punch here. Then a screw is placed into that already started hole, and then I use my radius tool here, these little compass arms that I've cut out of foam core, to draw out the actual circle that needs to be cut. The front edge comes right out to the front edge of the plywood, utilizing the entire 4x4 foot sheet of plywood. The inside circles have to be started by drilling a hole large enough to accept the saber saw blade inside of the area where I'm going to be cutting, and then placing the blade down through that hole, cutting out to my mark, and then continuing on around, being very, very careful to run my blade right up the center of my Sharpie mark here. If everything has gone well, the center section now drops free. I'll save these circles to use for something or other, but it's the outside part that I'm after. These first 2 layers aren't that critical. I've cut the upper one first. This will be the footings for the ties that hold the ring rail. And then I will cut out the center section, and this is just really a spacer and a way of helping to establish the dish shape of the turntable pit. So this one's not terribly critical at all. However, I would like everything to line up as well as I can get it. And so I now have my 3 bottom sections, the very bottom of the turntable, which only has its front edge cut out, and then these 2 sections, the inner spacer and the outer footings for the ring rail. In sliding everything into position, there are a few minor adjustments to make here. It's binding up a little, sliding into place, so I'm taking just 30 thousandths or so off of the right side, and then the front edge needs to be cleaned up because the various sections of plywood here are not completely in alignment with each other. So I'm going to take a belt sander to that and just clean that up a bit. Once everything is all cut out and the holes are drilled and I'm 100% sure that everything is perfect, I'm going to screw all of these various layers together so I don't get a gap there. My original plan was to wrap the whole front edge of this with a fascia board.
Right, but why not just sand it really smooth and leave it like it is? I think it's kind of neat.
Well, actually, that turned out pretty.
Right.
And not just pretty, I mean, not just pretty neat, but pretty. It's
Yes.
just pretty.
Yeah.
It looks nice.
I think it does.
And so there will be a space between this part of the turntable and the actual top. I'll have to figure out that little, it's going to be about a 1-inch filler between that stuff and this upper part. But this is the last thing now, is to very carefully cut out the outside edge of the turntable pit. And at that point, we have this pit.
Right.
Just need to, well, there's always plenty more things to do.
Oh, sure.
In terms of the actual structure of the pit, it will then be complete.
Right.
And that will be a milestone.
Exactly. I think so.
Anyway, hopefully you're going to want to follow along with this construction. And so if you're not a member of the channel, please subscribe. And the easy way to subscribe is by clicking on the upcoming blue button. Zoink! Right there, the blue button. Well, we're not sure how you found this video on the internet. We hope you didn't find it boring, and we will see you here on Tuesday.
Right.
We'll see ya.
See ya.
Bye-bye.
Bye.